Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, is this déjà vu? Have I seen this thrice? No, this is a different Bally CIRCUS pinball machine. We have this thing that happens a lot, where we'll fix a game, and we'll do a bunch of videos of it, and then someone will see the video and say, hey, I've got that same game. Will you fix mine? And they'll pop up with it, and then we'll fix theirs for them. So we run into this a lot, where we end up with 2 or 3 of the same title over and over and over again. They made literally thousands of different title pinball machines. But if you go by like if you go by Bally, they probably made 200 or 300 different titles. So it's just a strange thing, but we end up getting the same titles over and over again. The $6 Million Man. We did one of those before. A gentleman saw it and then brought us his to fix. This Circus, we did one before. A gentleman saw it and brought us his to fix. We did a Bally Freedom, same thing. We just happened to get 2 Captain Fantastics at the same time in to fix. We get the same titles over and over again, but that's fine. We don't mind. But if you have a Bally pinball machine, an electromechanical from the mid-70s, this one's going to be very similar to yours, even if it's not a Bally CIRCUS. And we also, the reason I don't mind working on the same games over and over again, like do 2 CIRCUS machines or 3 CIRCUS machines or whatever, is because this one, even though it's the same title, it's had a history, you know. So this game has been around for, what, almost 50 years now, and things have happened to it in that time. So it's still interesting to me, even though it's a game I've played before and we just worked on one and all that. It's still interesting and a little bit different to me because it's unique in its own way, just because of the stuff that's happened to it in the last 50 years. So we got this in from a gentleman. We're going to fix it up. He's not too concerned about the cosmetics of it. He just wants it to look, he just wants it to play good and look clean and, you know, be ready to go. So we're not going to repaint the cabinet or anything like that. We're just going to get it where the thing plays reliably. So if you're trying to do that with yours, this is the video series for you. So we'll work through it a little bit and see what she'll do. I've been doing this new thing in the videos where at the beginning I plug the thing in and try to play it. And the reason that I didn't used to do that is because I have to go through and clean everything anyway. The way you get these things reliable, at least the way I get them reliable, is I go through and I clean all the connections, clean all of the switches, work on all the stepper units, and then at the end of the day, hopefully, you end up with a machine that's been completely serviced and is reliable. So, you know, if something's happening where it won't kick the ball out and it's just resetting, I'm not going to troubleshoot just that, because even if you do figure out that there's one switch keeping it from doing that, all of your other connections and switches have issues too, you know. So I'd like to go through and service the whole thing. So that's typically what we do. So whenever I get one in that's for me, you know, that I'm fixing for myself or to sell or whatever, I don't even plug them in, because it's irrelevant if they work or not. I'm going to go through and service every part of them. But I thought it would be more interesting if we plug them in and try to play them, just so that we get a better understanding of what the customer was seeing whenever they were messing with it. Because sure, of course, he's going to plug this in and see if it works, you know. So we'll plug it up and see if it does anything, and then we'll start taking it apart and see if we can fix it. What do you think about that? Okay, so I plugged it up. Another reason I don't like plugging them in until I work through them a little bit is because I don't know what's going on inside of it. What if there's a nail on the fuse or something? You know? But then again, this is what a customer would do, so we're going to try it. And if it's I wouldn't do this with a Vector arcade game, but on a EM, if it burns up a coil or something, I can fix it. It's at the right place, people. If it needs repaired, I'll do it. Okay, so let me hit the switch. We have lights. I thought it was a cool game, the last one that I had. I just think it's a cool game. The back glass looks to be in pretty good shape, really. I don't remember how the last one was. I think it was in pretty good shape too, because I didn't paint it or anything. If I remember correctly, this is from '73 or something like that. So far, so good. It says game over. Okay. A little bit of wear on the playfield. There's a bad insert there that's actually cracked in half. That's fun. Excuse me. There is a chippy pop bumper skirt there. I know that's going to drive a couple of y'all crazy. Mark, I'm talking about you. That's going to drive Mark nuts. And there's the same dug-in crap there around it that we touched up on the last one. Maybe again. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe we should do it again. Okay. So let's act like I just bought this at an auction. Right? And not a pinball auction. I mean like an old-timey auction, you know, where they're going, all right, now I got your little Bally Circus pinball machine here. Who probably still works. Looks pretty good. Who'll give me $100? Who'll give me $100? Oh, got $100 all over the auction barn. All right, we'll go one video. Well, look, folks, you don't see these too often. Sold $3,245. Okay, so let's see if it starts. Nothing. But there's no credits. So I wonder if the only thing wrong with it is he didn't put a credit on it. Wouldn't that be something? Is the door locked? The door's locked and it looks like it's been kicked a lot. I don't know if you can see it, but it's all caved in. Well, let's try dropping a quarter into it. Boy, that's going to be something. This one's lit up. Maybe it still works. See, I'm trying to think like a customer. Nothing. It took my quarter. Okay, let's try another one. Nothing. Oh, I got one back. Maybe if I give it the old spin, you know, you do it like this. Nothing. Okay, so our first problem that the customer would have faced is that it doesn't have any credits on it, so it can't possibly start. But you know what? I've seen my way around these a couple times, and there's no back door on it. Now, I don't know if the customer knew this, but if you were to ever get your hand inside this sucker, let's say like you could bend it open and get your hand in there, especially if you were a kid. I've got these big, huge forearms, you know, because I'm such a badass. So I wouldn't be able to do this, but if you turn that one little click like that, it now has one credit on it. Let's see if it'll do anything now. Nothing. Maybe it's set to take 2 or 3 credits. George is back. Holy moly. Now, I've been having all kinds of people complain lately about playing the pinball machines in the dark, but, you know. Oh well, folks. By the way, Merry Christmas. I know you're probably watching this nowhere near Christmas, but I want you to look at this one. It's still got the vintage dust, and looks like it might have some cigarette smoke still inside of there. Let's see if she'll do anything. So the ball's out here. George started it for us. It reset all of the scores. We got a flipper. We have both flippers. We got a pop bumper. Looks like it might have stuck down. That ain't good. Okay. The pop bumper almost looks like it's stuck halfway down. I don't know. Ball 2. Oh, it's working. See that curve ball? It hit the little insert and curved. Ball 3. I guess I should lighten it up a little bit so people don't give me too much crap about the dark. Look, folks, you don't have to watch the videos, okay? If you don't enjoy stuff like this, this is the prelude, okay? This is the prelude, people. It's all going to be all right. Calm down. Okay, this thing actually works. Now, it's not ready to go or anything, but wow. Okay. So, yeah, it actually worked. Not quite right. Look at that. It's Christining itself. Now the start button works. What in the world? Okay, so that's where we're at. So the guy couldn't start it because he didn't have any credits on it. And then everything's a little, you know, needs a little work. So let me turn the lights back on and we're going to talk about it a little bit. So, now that we know that, let's look at it with another set of eyes, okay? So what do I see? I see the brightness way too high. Okay, so I see white rubber rings that have not broken. So at some point, probably within the last 6 or 7 years, somebody has put new rubber rings on this. Okay, I see some touch-up paint right there by that cracked lens. So someone has touched up the paint. I see flipper rubbers that while they're dirty, they're not broken or anything. You know, flipper rubbers, after a while, they'll start splitting on the end. You have to replace them. And then if you look over here, see the shooter tip, the little rubber there? It's all brown and dirty, and they don't even make brown ones, I don't believe. So that's an old one, right? That's what the rest of the rubber rings would look like if they were still the original ones. Okay, so it looks like what's going on is somebody has fixed this thing, and then it sat for a while and stopped working. So whenever I pulled this earlier, the first time, it was stuck. Like it was like it broke loose. So there were some oil or some kind of stickiness or something there. So I think it's just been sitting a long time. So the guy probably had it. It was up and running. Somebody had worked through it, but they didn't work on the pop bumper or anything. They kind of looks like they probably had it up and running. What do they call that on whenever you do that with cars? They call it a it's like a backyard mechanic, but they call it a whenever a guy restores a car himself, kind of like I do, you know, it's like I can't remember. There's a term for that, where you just kind of do the best you can and you get it working and you're happy with that. It looks like that's what happened here. Somebody got it working and it was playing, and you know, it could be better, you know, it could be working better, but it's technically working. And then it sat for a while and stopped working. So why did it stop working? That's the thing with these EM pinball machines. They have switches, and the switches get oxidized and get carbon buildup, dust on them, things like that. And so what happens is they stop making good electrical contact. Or it might be a plug somewhere or something. And so you let it sit for 4 or 5 years, you plug it back in, and now all of a sudden a bunch of the stuff doesn't work. It's because everything's dirty. So you can do like we're going to do, take everything apart, clean it and everything. But it would probably bring it back a long way if you just played it. If you play them every once in a while, the switches adjust themselves. Oh, not really adjust, but they kind of clean themselves. The contacts kind of rub against each other as they close, as they bend. They kind of wipe each other. and it cleans the contacts as you play them. So the best thing you can do to keep a electromechanical pinball machine working is play it every once in a while. Once a month, something like that. If you let it sit for 2 or 3 years, don't be surprised if when you plug it back in, it's kind of like this one. The button doesn't work. Stuff's not quite right. Okay. But yeah, that start button worked fine after we played a game. So I wonder if it's freed up yet. I wonder if it was on free play too. Let me take those credits off of it. Okay. So we're back to 0. Let me see if I can start another game. Yep. See, it's on free play. So I'm on 0. See, I have a 2-player game now. A 3-player game. A 4-player game. And then I can't start a 5-player game because that switch opened in there. Someone has worked on this and got it up and running. And the reason it wouldn't work for us a second ago is because the thing had just been sitting so long that nothing wanted to cooperate. Now we've got a little juice running through it. We're moving some switches. We got that score motor turning. The relays are doing their thing. The ball's slapping stuff. It's starting to work a little better, right? Yeah. So I think, you know, it puts me in a weird position because I could call the guy and say, hey, it's working again, but I didn't talk to him. I'm sure he wants it serviced, but I don't know how much service he wants. Even the flippers are decent, really. Cool game. Okay, so I'm gonna go get in touch with Joey. He talked to the guy. I'm gonna tell him that the thing's actually working, and if the guy wants us to do the full thing, or if he wants us to just try to touch it up a little bit, like we were talking about, that I usually don't do, right? But I usually don't start with a working game either. So I'll get in touch with him. Let's see what he says, and then we'll see what we need to do. Okay, so I talked with Joe, and he said that the gentleman said that the thing was working pretty good, and then recently it just stopped working. So we're going to have to kind of keep our eye on that. But it has definitely been serviced. There's things like, for instance, this fuse holder has been replaced. It looks like this coil has been replaced or something like that. There's some new wiring here, and it's done kind of decent. You know, there's nothing really wrong with it, with what they did. So I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of work through it a little bit and see what we run into. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to vacuum it out, just to clean it up a little bit. And I'm going to pull this playfield out so we can look at the Jones plugs and see if they cleaned the Jones plugs when they did it. To me, that always seems like an area that can really cause you problems. And then I want to look at these stepper units and see if they look like if they've been serviced or if they're stepping properly and all of that. So we might just do kind of like a light cleanup on some of it. I see a wire here that's cut, but that might not be. Looks like it went under the transformer, but that might not actually go to anything important. So I don't know. I think we'll just maybe not do where we clean every little switch in the game, because I mean the thing is working. Maybe we'll just look at stepper units and Jones plugs and just see if anything pops out at us. So let me take the playfield out. I'll vacuum this out a little bit, see if I can clean it up just a bit, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I vacuumed it out, popped the playfield off. With it out, you can see a couple things. You can see where a coil has burnt up here before. But see how the end-of-stroke switch wires have been replaced? I think that was probably in antiquity. We'll keep our eye on that though. And then here's the Jones plug. So if these get dirty, this can cause you all kinds of trouble. But to be honest, even though the inside of the cabinet was kind of filthy, these look pretty clean. And I can see where someone has cleaned them before. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. They didn't do it with sandpaper like I usually do it, but you can see where if you look, you'll see kind of, or maybe they did do it with sandpaper, you can see lines going across the pins. See it? From some kind of abrasive. So someone's cleaned those before, and they still look pretty clean, so I'm not going to mess with it. Okay, so someone's got that going. Here's a stepper unit. This is the bonus unit. So you want to see if these will freely move in both directions, right? And it does. It doesn't look like they cleaned the rivets, or, but it's working really good. So I hate to fix what's fixed. You know, if it's already working, I hate to charge a guy to repair something that doesn't need repaired. Got a few coils here that are, the paper looks charred, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're burnt up. It just means that those get used a little more often, and so they run a little hotter, and the paper chars a little bit, so it may or may not be a problem. Okay, and then we've got these two stepper units down here. Here is the fuse holder I was saying someone has replaced, and that looks just fine. Here's a stepper unit. Seems fine. Here's our coin unit. We tested that whenever we played a 4-player game. So it's on 4-player, 1-player, 2-player, 1-player, 2-player, 3-player, 1-player, 2-player, 3-player, 4-player. I don't know. It's working fine. Now, we had trouble with the start button. One of the reasons that the start button won't work is if that switch is open. Because when you get to the 4th position, it opens that switch. So, if that switch were to get dirty, it would never open. I mean, it would never conduct, and the game would never start. Okay? So let me show you on the schematics what I'm talking about. This is the coin unit on Bally's CIRCUS. Let's look at the schematics. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so I've pulled up the schematics. Now the way these work, if you're not familiar with schematics, is basically if you get power from this line, which connects back to the transformer, to this line, it turns on whatever's in the middle. Right? So there's this relay here, the credit relay, which is the first thing that you try to turn on. Now how do we know that? It's because there's the credit button. That's the start button on an arcade game, but on a pinball machine it's usually called the credit button. Right? So we're trying to get the power to connect from over here through the coin chutes, or, you know, let me see if I can find where that connects. Yeah. So the power connects through here, through the coin chute coin switch that isn't turned on, normally closed, through the 3rd coin chute switch. Power connects through a switch on the score motor, which I guess is cam 10, right? I can't get the focus any better. This focus always wants to fight. What is it doing? Okay, so it connects through cam 10 on the schematics, through a switch on the score motor, through the reset relay, but only when the reset relay is not pulled in, through the credit button when I push the button, okay, through the credit unit 0 switch. That's the one in the back box that it was on 0 and we turned it to where it said 1 and then it said 7 or whatever. That could have something to do with it. But then remember, after we started it, it would let us play more than one game, one player, even with it off on 0. So they must have somehow set it on free play. We can check that though. And then it can turn this on by either connecting that switch through the game over relay if it has been turned on, the ball count unit 0 switch. Okay, so that's, it opens at 0. So if you're not on ball 1, it can do it. The player up unit 0 switch. So if you're not on player, if you're not on the very first player, so it's not the beginning of the game, that will close, allowing the start button to reset it. Or the coin unit limit switch. So when the coin unit limit, that's the one we're talking about. So once it gets up to 4, that one opens, right? So we started a 4-player game, and then I tried to start a 5-player game, and it wouldn't start because that was open. It couldn't connect through there because we were at player at the 0 switch on the player up unit or whatever. We were at 0 on the ball count unit because we hadn't started the ball or anything, and the game over relay hadn't pulled in, right? So we couldn't get power up there any other way. Okay, so my whole point is, if that switch is open or dirty, you can't start the game. But also, if that switch is open or dirty, you can't start the game. But also, if that switch is dirty or open when you press it, you can't start the game. But also, if that switch is dirty or not connected, you can't start the game. But also, if this switch on the motor is dirty or not connecting well, you can't start the game. Or also, if these lines here on the coin door switches, if they're dirty, you can't start the game. So it could be anything along that line, which is why I usually go through and clean every little thing, right? But this one, since it moves a lot, that bar, you know, it has to be adjusted pretty sensitively. It has to be where when you get to 4 it opens, but when it's at 3 it's still closed, right? That one often is dirty or out of adjustment. So I'm going to check it. We're also going to check what they did with their... remember, once we put it on 1 credit, it still didn't do it. But we're going to check what's going on with that switch. But this one I've seen make this exact problem happen before, so we're going to check it too. So we'll just kind of troubleshoot it a little bit, and it's working now, but you know, we'll just see if anything looks like that could have been the problem. I want to see how dirty the contacts look on that switch. Okay, so there is our switch that we're talking about. It looks like it's adjusted properly, but it doesn't really look all that clean. So we're looking at the actual contact here. I don't know that you can even see it. You see how it just looks dirty? So will that conduct electricity every time? I don't know. So I'll show you the old way that the old timers used to clean those, okay? They would take a business card. Look at that. Have you ever seen a nicer business card? They would take a business card and they would run it through the switch, and they do it with 2 hands. Okay, so you can see how you get a bunch of dirt at first, and then a little less, and a little less. So it's like they would cut it into little strips, you know, and run a business card through the switches to clean them up. But all that just came off of it, you know, so if that's a perfectly dispersed bit of dirt, it might not conduct. I wonder if it's any shinier now. Let me see. Why, it sure is. That ain't gonna work. It looks shinier now, people. Take my word for it. Okay, folks, so I went ahead and went through and cleaned the switches. I didn't use the card, though. I use a small file, like a little needle file that's a flat file that's very low grit. You don't want to use something super abrasive, but I went ahead and, because it's working, but I mean, the switches aren't clean, so, you know, it needs somebody to clean them, so I cleaned them. It didn't take too long. And then I cleaned the ones on the switch stacks on the score motor, too. Same story, you know, if those contacts aren't clean, it just stops conducting electricity after a while, and then the thing doesn't work right. And since we've got, you know, all kinds of potential switches and connections that could make that start button not work, we got to get past that. Let me show you this too. So this is the Jones plug from the coin door. If you look, you can see that someone has cleaned it at some point, and they actually look nice and shiny. I didn't mess with those. That's just the condition they were in. So someone has worked through it, and I'm not criticizing anything they did or didn't do. I'm just saying it's been several years now, and it's time to freshen it up a little bit, right? So I cleaned the switches, and I'm not going to take the stepper units apart or anything, but since they're so simple, I'm just going to clean the rivets a little bit. I have these little Japanese knife cleaning rocks that someone mailed me. Was it Scott? I think it was Scott. Hey, Scott. And these things work great to clean the rivets up. Okay, and it just cleans the dirt off of it a little bit. If you want some of these, you can get them on our website. We've got a link to Amazon for them. Oh yeah, I'll show you the little test. Now, you may have seen on one of our previous machines that I used this on the lockdown receiver, and I'm not going to clean this whole thing, but look, there's a spot here where it looks like somebody else used sandpaper or something to clean that up too. Okay, well, let's test this thing out, right? This is some kind of Japanese thing, right? So you see the rust there, you see it's not coming off or anything. That is straight up rust. Boy, that's some serious rust removal there, people. I guess sandpaper would do the same thing, but works pretty good. It's like a really hard eraser. It's like a pencil eraser, but like tough. Works great. So go check those out. They're on our website, lionsarcade.com. We have a parts page, but they're just knife cleaning rocks. I don't know what they're called. They're on the website, but it's in Japanese. But it's in English, but it's a Japanese name. And then, after I clean the rivets, I'm going to lubricate them with this stuff. See how it says right there? Dielectric. That's what you want. It has to say dielectric. That means that it will conduct electricity, but also insulate electricity. It's like magic. So if you were to put oil on those rivets, it would conduct between the rivets, and that's bad. Very bad. Good way to start a fire. So you want something dielectric that insulates between the rivets, but then when the rivets wipe over it, once it gets down to it's basically pushing through the grease, it conducts electricity. It works perfect. For electrical connections, dielectric. Okay, so I'm going to clean those up a little bit. I'm not even going to take the spider off. I'm just going to clean them and then move it a couple spots and clean under whatever the little arm is on top of. And then we'll go for it. And then this one here, the same way. There's some little things there that could clean up a little bit. Those actually look pretty clean, so maybe I don't mess with that one. But and then we'll end up with it in about how it would be if we were fixing up one that's not working. We've basically done the same stuff to it, except we didn't clean the Jones plugs because it doesn't need it. Also, someone has cleaned the chime unit. Need something metal to hit it with. Who's got something metal? The chimes to me sound like they're going to work just fine. I guess they were working just fine earlier. So let me clean those up, and then we'll pop the play field back in it. And I guess the next thing we're going to do is clean up that filthy play field. And then, of course, we still have to do the back box too, though. Much better. Cleaned them up, put a little bit of grease on it. Whenever you clean them, make sure you clean the bottom of the fingers too. Seems to be working just right. But, as we know, it already was. Okay, folks, so let's give it a little test. All we did was what we did underneath the playfield. Let's see if they'll all reset. Pretty impressive. The 1 to 4 play light is out. Okay, so let me start 4 games, not 5. We'll let it score a point, and then we'll turn it off. When you turn it back on, you might have heard a click. That's the game over relay coming on. Game over. Let's try it again. Let us start a game again. Doesn't let us start a 5-player game. Here to click. Here. Oh, I didn't do it long enough, I guess. Maybe I should have let it land in the out hole first. Game over. Let's try it again. Well, you saw what it was doing. I think it just wanted to be played a little bit. I think those switches had just gotten dirty somewhere along the way. Seems to even have a little more pizzazz now, or is it just because the glass is off? I don't know, folks. Try it one more time. I mean, it just absolutely was not starting, and it must have not been starting for him either. Game over. Maybe it's if you're maybe they weren't playing 4-player games. Maybe if the I don't know what other variables there could be here. Okay, ball and play 2. Okay, let's try it with that. I mean, it's working pretty good. It's not quite there yet, but it's playable how it is. I think ultimately it was just the maybe that switch was dirty, or it was something. I think it was just a dirty switch, and once that sucker started moving and we finally got it to work, whoop, there it is. So we're gonna keep working it though. I think what I'll do is I'll have Joe go ahead and do the playfield. What do you think? Maybe Joe can go ahead and do the playfield for us. I think I'm going to work around that just a little bit. Even though the guy doesn't want to do cosmetic stuff, that wouldn't be that hard. I could do that. Come on, people, come on. I can't send it back. Come on now, people. People, come on now. Look. Come on now. Come on, people. People, I can't. Come on now, I can't leave it like that whenever there's not much else to do. I mean, if I'm not doing a ton of work, I gotta at least do the. Come on now, come on, people. What are you thinking? So we might fix that. But there you go. So this is an interesting one. It's not often we get them that work that just needs slapped on the side a little bit. I bet the Fonz could have fixed it. Hey! So there you go. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Check out our website, like I was saying, lionsarcade.com. The link is down below. Go to the parts page, and we got a bunch of our stuff listed on there. You can click if you go and buy any of that stuff or buy anything else on Amazon. After you click that link, it remembers that we sent you, and it gives us a tip. So we appreciate that. And then finally, last but not least, don't forget to check out my brother Donnie here on YouTube. My brother has a channel. He's crazier than I am. Go check it out. A good time is had by all. I'm usually over there on a lot of the videos. So we'll see you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed it so far. We'll get farther into it on the next video.